All right. Good evening. As always, it is Wednesday, October 9th. Welcome to the episode 5 of the Cheap Seats with Pat and Kevin podcast. I'm joined by the one and only voice of Rhode Island high school football, Mr. Kevin Callahan, and I'm Pat Holland.
I'd like to thank Brendan McGear
Kevin,
for
how
that
are you?
moniker.
Yeah,
He
I
gave it
love
to me
it.
about 3 or 4
It's going to
weeks
stick.
ago. So.
Yeah. And so tonight, I think we're going to cover Major League Baseball playoffs, some updates there. We'll touch upon, obviously, the news out of the Bruins with the Jeremy Swayman signing, which unfortunately happened a date 24 hours after our show in the
Yeah,
morning. It couldn't have
they
happened
couldn't
the day
have
before, but
waited one more day at that point.
right. That would have been
We're
great.
breaking NBA trades of players
Bruins,
that no one's ever heard of. And
yeah.
like a swim in 24 hours.
Bruins opened last night in Florida. Against the defending Stanley Cup champions, the banner raised to the rafters down there, which was terrible.
Yeah, a little bit of a
I
comeback
think
at
I
the
want to
end,
touch base. Yeah. We'll touch base a little bit on the NCAA, the Division I hockey voting to, or at least I think they're scheduled to vote, or it's going to come up that they're going to vote on the eligibility of major junior hockey players in Canada to be able to play college hockey, which they've never been able to up until this point. And then obviously we'll touch upon the Patriots and just an abysmal showing versus the Dolphins last week, and then them coming out today finally deciding that they're going to make the change to Drake Maye. Because everything's changed in the last 72 hours. That it's he is the best option for us to win now. Joe
Milton, get ready.
All right. Yeah, there were rumors that he might be the backup. I don't see that. I can't see that happening. But yeah, but all right. So Major League Baseball, we're well into the. I guess this is what
Division series,
the divisional series. Yeah. Detroit wins today, 3-0.
They're up 2-1.
So they lead Cleveland 2-1. The Mets knock out Philly. Clinch that series tonight. They won 4-1 today. So the Mets move on, believe it or not. And then currently New York and Kansas City, they're tied 1-1. They're currently playing top of the 6th. It's 2-2. And then in the nightcap at 9, we have the Dodgers and Padres. San Diego currently leading that series 2-1.
Dodgers can close it.
The Dodgers must win tonight. I believe I read Freeman is not playing.
He was limping off the field available the other day.
Yeah, so I haven't really been paying too much attention. I think I've just shut down after the Red Sox season, and I'm more of a hockey guy now, so I'm getting ramped up for hockey season. But I do know, I get the update. So I saw that last night's San Diego LA game was like great. Like San Diego scored 6 in the second. LA came back. San Diego held on for a 6-5 win.
It was like a grand slam in the third.
Tatis had like a yeah. So it sounds like there's good baseball being played. That's for sure. So I'll tune in for the World Series, obviously, but.
If that series goes back to Dodger Stadium, Pat, you may want to tune in to see if the Dodger fans start throwing things at the Padres again.
Yeah, so that was a little crazy. And then I heard, was it Machado threw a ball?
Did you see it?
And like towards? I didn't see it, but I heard the interview where was it Dave Roberts?
If you watch,
and he said,
if you watch the video, Machado's out at about the shortstop spot. And you know how, you throw it around in the infield and you just throw it back into the dugout afterwards? Well, he was throwing it towards the Dodger dugout and towards the ball boy.
Yeah.
There's a cement lip in front of the bench, and it hit the lip, and then it bounced up kind of like a field hockey ball, and it hit the fence right in front of Dave Roberts. If that fence wasn't there, it would have hit Dave Roberts. But I am not a Manny Machado fan
was there
at all. And as a matter of fact, I blame him. But, I mean, did he throw it a little hard? Yeah, it was on the ground. He threw a hard ground ball.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Hey, man, they teach you at the young age, right? I mean, hey, ball's coming down, ball's in. I mean, you dealt with it at the small diamond. I mean, I'm an umpire, and I'm like, ball's in. I got to pay
I've been hit by
attention.
balls.
I guess at the major league level, you don't expect it, but yeah, I didn't see the video. I heard the interview, and then at the time, I didn't even know who they were talking to.
Yeah.
But, then I did hear it was Dave Roberts, and I was like, and then knowing Machado, I'm like, well, maybe could be.
I thought he was guilty too, knowing Machado and his history and everything. I'm like,
right,
I watched
his history, right?
All right, he threw it a little
nothing.
hard, but
it's harmless. Harmless. Yeah. So, Mets seem to be playing good baseball.
Yeah. Detroit.
Do we dare say we could see a New York final? Would that be awful?
Would be awful.
That would be just awful.
But then again, I saw.
What do they call that? The Subway Series?
I saw an article in the New York Post today or yesterday about how bad the Yankees are, and they're in real danger out in Kansas City. They're really struggling against the 86 win Royals. They think they may lose the series.
Well, I mean, I think Kansas City has. When you get this far, it usually either comes down to your bats are just on fire, like the Mets, or pitching is dominant,
right.
And that seems to be Kansas City has been. I mean, they got some quality arms. Yeah. I mean, some of them pitched for the Red Sox over the last couple of years. But so. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how this all plays out. I mean, but Detroit, here's another team, right?
Right.
Detroit was the last team in, right? Were they the 6th?
Yeah, but they were on fire in the second half of the year, playing 667 baseball the whole second half of the year.
So. And that's exactly what happened with Arizona last year.
So they're in my opinion, they're a legit team. Like if the Sox had snuck in that third wild card, maybe because we follow them so close, we knew that they weren't necessarily legit, and we were just
they didn't. Yeah.
Hey,
they would have been limping in?
Did you see my little interesting factoid on the division series? Did I send it to you? First of all, I didn't know the division series has been around since '95. I'm like, wow, that's older than our kids. And for the first time ever, all the series were tied 1-1 the other day.
Was it the one about the Padres?
No, that was the other one. That was another interesting factoid. Okay. This was all four division series are tied 1-1. The thing about the Padres.
Oh yeah. You just said what the factoid was, and I wasn't listening because I was looking up the text
thing
you sent me. Because
the thing about the Padres, I'm going to ask this as a trivia question on Saturday.
Name
the only team.
Yeah, so that's unbelievable.
There have been 700 triple plays, 300 no hitters, 300 sets of back-to-back home runs, and over 100 comeback wins from 8 runs plus down. That you were down. Only one team has done all 4 in the same season, and that would be this year's 2024 San Diego Padres. It's crazy.
I mean, hopefully everyone is watching the podcast this week.
They can call in with the answer.
But if you're going to use that as a trivia question on Saturday, then it's an easy answer. If you've watched the podcast, you will know the answer, and we'll give away a Dunkin' Donuts gift card. Or whatever they're calling it. Is it just the dunks now? Or do they still call it Dunkin' Donuts?
Sure.
I don't know. And if you call in an answer, you'll get a gift card to Dunkin' Donuts, and Kevin will have to wear one of those dunk outfits that Ben Affleck wore in the Super Bowl commercial.
We'll work on that second part.
All right. Yeah. So we'll keep an eye out on these games. I'll give updates as things change. But
I'm in a better internet area today, so I don't have the access to the TVs like I do.
You are. This is great. So no real technical difficulties this week, which is good. So let's pivot to the NHL first. Yesterday was great. There was 3 games on back to back to back. It was like I was in heaven.
You got to listen to Ray Ferraro on 2 games.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
Wall calls it the
Utah
Phil
Hockey
Collins
Club.
Award. When you remember Live Aid when he played in England and the United States.
Oh yeah, I don't. You guys are older than me.
I thought you're looking older with a beard.
No. I know. I do know Phil Collins.
In 1985, Live Aid. He played at Wembley Stadium.
I was 9,
and then flew transcontinental and played in Philadelphia. Led Zeppelin reunited. Queen was there.
Was it as Phil Collins or was it as Genesis?
I think one was as Genesis, and the other one he filled in for whoever and sang probably one of his songs. So,
gotcha.
So Ray Ferraro winning the Phil Collins
so last
Award.
night, yeah, that was pretty cool. Pretty cool to watch. Utah Hockey Club makes their inaugural game now. Although they are a new team, they're technically not a new. I mean, there was no expansion draft because there was a they moved from Arizona.
However,
so it's a little bit different than when Seattle came in.
Did you hear? Yeah, none of the Arizona Coyote records, Phoenix Coyote records, are now retired. So they're treating the Utah team as a brand new expansion team. And if Arizona gets a team back, they get the Coyotes, I guess, if they want. So anybody, so anybody starting new. I'm not quite sure. So whoever scored is the first goal.
Technically, Arizona was Winnipeg, weren't they?
Winnipeg became Arizona, and then Atlanta became Winnipeg.
You'd have to unravel that whole web.
Yeah. Atlanta's answer to another trivia question. They're the only American team to lose 2 teams to Canada. Canada's lost Atlanta. Quebec to Colorado,
Toronto,
Winnipeg to Arizona,
and the Raptors.
The Expos to Washington. The Atlanta Flames went to Calgary. The Atlanta Thrashers went to Winnipeg.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And then there's rumors of them getting another team. Oh my gosh! But anyway.
Yeah. But I think they're set up better now down there.
Yeah.
Anyway, like everything else, but so Utah Hockey Club makes their inaugural home game last night versus Chicago. They win 5-2. Dylan Genther scored their first goal. He actually had 2 in the game. So they get their first win in franchise history. Pretty cool atmosphere to watch that. They get this billionaire young owner who also owns the Utah Jazz. He owns the Real Salt Lake MLS team. He owns the Utah Women's and NWSL team. He owns a bunch of stuff out there and all their stadiums. So I think the only downside out there is their stadium they play in. There is a set section of seats that basically sit out over. So if you're in them, you can't see the goal that's below, that's closest to you.
I think that,
which is a little bizarre.
I think they're working on it.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're going to have to make changes. So.
And I don't think that's going to be their permanent home.
No, I think they're building a different. Right. And he's all in out there, growing grassroots. It was one of the questions I want to say it was Messier asked him. It was either Messier or PK Subban asked, what are you going to do to grow the sport? And he was like, ultimately, they have 70,000 youth basketball players playing in the youth Jazz program. And he's like, our goal is to build, basically call upon all the cities in Utah to put a rink in your city. We'll help you as much as we can, but they want to grow the sport.
If I'm not mistaken, they had the Winter Olympics, and aren't they getting it back?
Yeah, they're back there in 32, I think.
So they must have had some hockey rinks in and around the Salt Lake City area. And obviously they're going to need that again the next time the Winter Olympics come. So that should help. Hopefully they're working together with the U.S. Olympic Committee on this. And I mean, again,
and I'm sure I'm sure they got hockey rinks out there. I'm sure there are some sort of youth programs out there, but just not as many as you would see up in
Minnesota.
Obviously Minnesota, out here, New
Right.
England, and again, that didn't happen here until the days of Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
Right. Changed the face of the game out here. And next thing you know, every city, obviously the city of Boston had rinks all over the place.
Right.
So congratulations to them. Great hockey. Bruins. All right. So obviously Sunday morning, right, like dead center, and when we would have been on the air, but a day late, we get the announcement that the Bruins had come to an agreement with Jeremy Swayman on a 8-year,
$66 million.
66. Yeah. So he's basically eight years at $8.25 million a year. So they tie him up. Did they overpay? Probably. We'll see. But now you see, I think I sent you
Shesterkin turned down 11.
Shesterkin, 11. He would have been the highest paid goalie in the history of the game, and he said,
"Nope,
no, not good enough." And then obviously today, Ottawa comes out. They extend Allmark 4 years, $33 million, which is $8.25 million AAV.
They were joking on NHL Network that Allmark should have held out for $1 more just so he could say to Swayman, "I got $1 more than you."
8.26.
No, even worse, 8.25, comma 0001.
Yeah. So it's good. Obviously, it's good to have him back. I'd rather have him than not have him. Let them deal with the how to deal with. And obviously, I think the cap's going to get bigger and bigger as we move forward, which I think is what Swayman was kind of ultimately saying all along is, 8 years from now, this deal won't look as good as it does now, or even 5 years from now. They were talking about the Rask deal at the time. Like I think if you look at percentage of cap space, the percentage of the contract per this cap space, Rask was actually more at the time than the Swayman deal is.
Okay, I didn't know that.
So, and ultimately at the end of that deal, it ended up getting smaller and smaller and smaller because the cap went up. So
there were,
we'll see.
There were two things I did here, Pat, on the Swayman when Neely said, the 64 million reasons why I'd be playing here. Basically, that was the Bruins making an offer for Swayman. When both sides said they may not have heard. I'm sorry. When Swayman said, we hadn't heard that number, his agent, whatever. I think that was like, look, here it is, right here in public. 64 million reasons, and then the other thing, I thought this was interesting when Montgomery said, whether he signs or not, Korpisalo is our starting goalie. And they think Swayman may have been like, whoa, they're going to go on without me? Yes, Jeremy. Boston Bruins have been an organization for 100 years. Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to play opening night against Florida, whether you're there or not.
So, the show must go on.
Whether you're there or not.
I mean, there were rumors that he might end up starting. He might have ended up starting that game. He didn't.
Can I use something? When I was coaching AAU, and I know it's apples and oranges, but it's the immediate thing I thought of is, you had your winter workouts before baseball season started, and one of our better players was not starting on opening day. He's like, "Why are you punishing my kid for not starting on opening day?" And my response to him was, "We're not punishing your kid. We're rewarding the kids that were here for all 12 practices. We are rewarding the top 9 in attendance." I don't think they were punishing Swayman for not being there. I think they were rewarding Korpisalo for being there in camp, putting in the time, looked decent in camp, looked decent at times last night, though the defense kept breaking down in front of them, a couple soft goals. But so I think last night was not a punishment of Swayman, but you think you can just sit out camp and we're going to reward you with the opening day start against the Stanley Cup champions? No, it doesn't work that way. However, I think he starts Thursday night. And I do think he gets to his 55 games this year, if not 60, depending on injury.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. You could be onto something there. I mean, for sure. I mean, I think, there's something to be said about live game action, which he hasn't seen. Supposedly he's been training and playing over at BU with Pandolfo and in the guys over there, but you can't replicate in-game action. So,
and the only way to do that now is in game.
I'm actually glad that they didn't end up putting him in last night, because I'd rather just go, you wrap him up 8 years, this long, contentious contract negotiation, then you have to put him in that first game, and next thing you know, he gets hurt. It's like, all right, now he's out 5 months, so
I also think it sends a message that you can't just sit out and expect to play the second you sign the contract.
Yeah, sure.
So I think
I'm sure there's something to that. There's something to be said about that, for sure. The game was just, I thought from my eyes they were slow. They had way too many defensive breakdowns. They turned the puck over a lot in the first period in the neutral zone. And they just, and then, Korpisalo was under
attack.
Yeah. I mean, there was certainly, I thought the shorthanded goal that he gave up, he was a little off of his angle. Probably should have had that. But I thought McAvoy probably should have forced that play off to the corner. I mean, how he let, who was it? It was,
I'm forgetting now. Was it Bennett?
It was Bennett.
I think it was Bennett.
I don't think it was Bennett, but,
he's always around.
Get to the inside and get that, it's basically like a little chip shot off, but Korpisalo was off the angle, and it was one of them. I'm you might not hear it, but I'm at home. I'm a yeller. I yell at the TV. My wife says, I don't know why you yell. They can't hear you. I said, yeah, they can. Actually, they can.
Of course, but they can hear you live. They can't hear you on the DVR.
Right. Yeah, so they can't. Yeah, they can. Yeah, they can hear you live. Yeah, but I said, I don't. They can hear me. No, they can't. But outside of that, I mean, I thought he played fairly well. I mean, he had 35 shots. I think he saved 29 out of 35. Right. He lost that first goal. I think he lost. It went straight up in the air, but they just weren't hard enough down around the end, around the goal.
They didn't work together as a team.
Too many times they're getting beat. I mean, they got some backdoor tip ins where, they got, I mean, it's like, I thought, Lowry and Carlo looked lost out there. Like they were astride behind everyone. Yeah. Lowry turned the puck over a ton. So, I mean, obviously I think they were -5.
And they're being counted on as a second pair defense, I believe. Are they not? Or are they third pair defense? Because you had
no, I think they're the
and they got
second.
the big Russian on the third line, on the third pair of defense with, I'm drawing a blank on
Zadarov with I don't know who he played with last night.
I knew it.
It wasn't Wotherspoon.
No, I'm drawing a blank.
It was Peak.
That was it.
Yeah, it was Lindholm and McAvoy, Lowry, Carlo, and then Peak and Zadarov. But yeah, Carlo and Lowry were -5 combined. So
anyway. Big year for Carlo, because I think Carlo disappointed a lot of people last year. I think. And
yeah, I mean he's making what, 5.5.
So he needs to step up his game, and the Bruins are going to need him to step up his game, because you can't just rely on McAvoy.
Yeah, you know what bothered me last night? The announcers really bothered me. Everybody who touched the puck for the Bruins, it was like, they need him to have a big season. They need him to have. I'm like, yeah, you don't have to say that for everyone who touched the puck. Like Beecher, it's like they need Beecher to be able to contribute. It's like, yeah, we get it. They need everybody
to have a big season.
All teams need everyone.
They're expecting more out of Trent Frederick. I'm like, yes, yes, we know.
I thought Trent Fredericks had a great game. He was buzzing around. He was physical. Yep. He didn't take any stupid penalties. I thought they took a couple bad penalties.
Oh, that slashing on the referee, that was a bad penalty. I forgot who took that.
Yeah,
was that Peak?
But that was no, that was Koepke?
Something like that. Yeah, he's trying to knock the stick down and he hits the ref. No.
Yeah, that was bad. And so it's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, at first I was like, that's not a penalty. You got to get it. And I'm like,
you can't slash the ref.
But you also have to call.
Oh,
there was a cross check in front of the Florida. I mean, I think it was on Geeky.
Yeah.
Like, no one around them, 2 hands straight to the back, no call. And I'm like, how do you not call that? But I don't know. What are you going to do?
Exactly.
I felt like they got a little out of their game. They were running around, going after Tkachuk a lot. I love Tkachuk, but I hate him. Like I hate to say like I hate him, and I think I said it in our text chat last night. I'd love to see someone just beat the bag out of him. Like just pull him out and beat the bag out of him.
I hate Tkachuk like the rest of the league hates Marchand. I would love to have Tkachuk on the team.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone says that you hate him, but if he played for you, you'd love him. Like, absolutely. Yeah, and that says a lot,
right?
I guess about me. Trying to think of who took that penalty. Was it the second period?
The Geeky?
Max Jones took it. Unsportsmanlike conduct.
Who was it?
Max Jones. Max Jones.
He's new, isn't he?
He had a couple. Yeah, he had a couple fight. And then he took a roughing penalty in the third. Zadorov had a slash. He had a couple penalties too, I think, didn't he? Yeah, Zadorov had a minor for cross-checking.
It was tough when it was 6-1 or 6-2 to pay his close attention. I'm like, well, it's 6-4.
I liked
themselves in position.
The first period.
That was good.
The first period, I liked. I liked.
I like the shorty
Kostelic taking that hit. And then Greer responds with the fight. I think that was a little bit left over from last season. I didn't get to read it, but I know Frederick came out and said something about Tkachuk today about how just why he was so upset with it, and he just said, so I'll have to pull. I don't want to get into it because I have literally no idea what was said, but something happened which got him as upset as he was. And he's like, I have no respect for a guy like that, for a guy who's done what he's done and accomplished what he's accomplished to act like that on the ice. So it must have been bad. So, so hopefully, they bounce back against Montreal. They settled down. I heard Montgomery's press conference and he was like, he didn't blame Korpisalo. Right. He's like, he's like, our defense was terrible.
He's right.
He's like, they had a couple bang backdoor plays, guys not being physical enough in front. I mean, he had some bad rebounds, but other than that, I mean, he made some nice saves too.
Yeah, he did. This is a very cliche. It was a team loss because they just weren't good in all facets of the power play. I think they got a late power play goal, but they also gave up a shorthanded goal. I know they scored a shorthanded goal.
Yeah, they scored a shorthanded goal, and then like 2.5 minutes later, they gave up. So they had McAvoy with a nice goal in the first, then Fredericks, Pasternak, and Zaka. Zaka was a shorty. Yep. So
it was a good team loss.
I thought like Pasta was invisible for the first 2 periods. Him and Coy, like you never really heard their names.
That's because the puck was back in the defensive zone the whole day. They were being outshot 12-1 at some point.
They also, get them, you're in Florida, they get the matchup, they get the last change before the face-offs. You see Pasta and getting those guys out there, you get your Reinhart, Tkachuk line out there, and they match up. I don't think it's a good matchup for most lines in the NHL. So, I mean, that's what they're going to be faced with. And Bobrovsky made some nice saves. He gave up some bad goals too.
Especially late.
I think that that Pastrnak goal was like, I mean, I get it was a deflection, but he wasn't even
he
close.
completely lost focus. So. I thought in the third period, he thought it was over, and it wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Beecher made that pass out front to Frederick, and it was like, I don't even think he saw the pass because it was in the top corner before he even moved.
So no, I thought he took the rest of the third period off, and hey, got away with it. They still won 6-4, but it was, I think it was 6-1 or 6-2? 6-2 for sure at one point, but it may have been 6-1.
Yeah, I think they cut it to 5-3,
and then 6-2, and then 6-3, 6-4. I think is how it went.
Let's see, Kansas City 2-2, 2-2 top 7, and Mookie Betts just went deep in the first, so it's 1-0 Dodgers.
You do get when the Bruins get the Canadians tomorrow night. They get Montreal on back-to-back nights. Montreal's playing tonight.
Yep, and then they open up against the Kings on Saturday. So
the Bruins open up against the Canadians tomorrow. Home opener tomorrow.
No, they're in. Maybe.
I'm going to check.
I'm going off of what they said.
No, they screwed that up. They said they were opening up.
They were all over themselves.
They screwed that up 3 times last night on ESPN. They said
home against Canadians tomorrow.
They said they opened up against the Kings on Thursday. Then they said no, that's Saturday. They open up in Montreal on Thursday. I'm like, no, they don't. Just look at that. So
home.
They have their home opener
Montreal,
Thursday, and then you have the Kings on Saturday. They actually have a 3-game home stand. They got the Panthers on Monday on Columbus Day.
Yeah. Oh,
yes.
Do they?
So nice. I think you'll definitely see Swayman in net for that one. So you probably go Swayman, Korpisalo, back to Swayman is my guess how it'll go. I don't think they'll put Swayman in for 3, but I think Swayman gets tomorrow and Swayman gets the Panthers. It's my guess.
Yeah, it would make sense.
Excuse me.
So, yeah, well, I mean, we'll see what happens. Long season. I expect them to bounce back from this. Hopefully Swayman gets in there. The defensemen kind of settle down. I mean, you can tell they want to try to play more physical for sure. They were, but I think they were taking themselves out of position to try to make hits last night. So
I can't treat one NHL game like I do a football game. It's you need a sample of about 7 games, 7 or 8. So give me 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month. Let's see how they look at the end of October. We'll see how they look in November.
In all reality, they haven't been. It's not a good matchup for them. It hasn't been the last couple seasons.
Oh, Florida. No.
They obviously. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we need to do something different, and hopefully they can make that adjustment this year. But it didn't look like it last night, at least for the first 2.5 periods. They settled down in the second, but then they gave up that shorthanded goal. That was really the difference right there. If they could have kept that game a little bit closer, and then maybe gotten the next goal instead of giving up that shorthanded goal,
that's a different game, right?
It's a much different game. So. All right, we'll touch upon let's switch gears a little bit. We'll touch upon this NCAA. And I don't know. I think they were supposed to be meeting this week. I think it might have been even yesterday and today. So I don't have an update on whether there was a vote or not. But essentially, NCAA has gone through a bunch of different rules changes. Obviously, the NIL change was big for mainly football and basketball for the most part. The portal obviously was a big change. Prior to that, players had to, if they transferred schools, they would have to sit out a year. They'd lose a year of eligibility. I think the portal change came up, 1, because of COVID, but 2, because of coaches, right? These coaches signing huge contracts and then walking away. A player kind of commits to a school for the most part because of the relationship with their coach, right? The coach is recruiting you. They're coming out and they're spending a lot of time. They're investing in you. You go to that school. He turns around and leaves. Now it's like, well, I didn't come here to play for this guy, or this guy comes in and brings his own players in, and now it's like you're now instead of you being the one, you're the two, you're the three. But if you transferred, you had to sit out a year unless you transfer. I think unless you transferred down, like you could transfer to a Division II or a Division III school and not have to sit out. But so the transfer portal is now the new thing. I think they got to put some sort of regulations in about that. I mean, now you got kids playing for if you have 4 years of eligibility or even 5, if you have a red shirt or a medical year or COVID, and you got kids playing at 5 different schools.
Look at the kid at UNLV in football. He didn't get his money. I'm sitting. He's 3-0 as a quarterback.
Yeah. And I don't know, somebody mentioned something to me yesterday. There's like a 29-year-old quarterback in playing for someone. I have to look it up. How, he's like, how is it possible? How is it not? Like, I know obviously you got COVID, you have medical red shirts, and you could have multiple medical red shirt years, right? You can only red shirt 1 year, but if you have a medical red shirt, I think you can, as long as you have to get the approval from the NCAA, but you could have multiple, like, who was a quarterback?
If you got do you get a maximum of 2 years of red shirt? I'm not sure, but I know my oldest in baseball in NCAA got 2 extra years of COVID given to him. So for COVID. So he got 4 years
because of COVID.
So he got 4 years, and then he had to use 2. Now the 2 don't roll over. He either used it or he didn't. But he could have played 6 years. If one or two of those years were of the 4 were redshirted, then he would get those years back because you can still play in a redshirt year up to a certain amount.
Certain amount of games.
Or 20. Yep. I'm not even sure what the numbers are. So you can get up to 26 or 27 potentially because, like I said, my oldest could have had 6 years. So that's, age 18 to 24. Let's just pretend he started at 19 or 20, like maybe some hockey players do. They get to 26. I still don't know how you get to 29. With your 6 years with COVID plus 2 redshirt, I could see 27, 28, but man, 29. I don't know how you get to 29. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I was just looking it up here. Like, I think, I'm fairly certain, like Michael Penix Jr., who played he's in Atlanta now, right? Got drafted by Atlanta. I'm fairly certain he played he played from 2018 to 2023.
So that would be
6 years of college football,
and that's 2 years of COVID
at 2 schools. Yeah, and he had a medical because I think he blew out his left knee and then he blew out his right knee.
There was before COVID. I remember there being a 7th-year player on Providence College basketball. That was before COVID. So obviously there were some red shirts there, and there may have been another exemption. So to get to 29, like this athlete is, he probably got some sort of exemption. Could have been like a hardship case, family emergency. Then you throw in a couple of years of red shirt, and you throw in another year or 2 of COVID, and then your actual 4 years of playing. Next thing you know, you're 29 and you're still going to frat parties. So I'm not sure.
Yeah. Anyway, I think we got a little swayed there, but yeah, I mean, you could go on. I mean, college NCAA is obviously it's big business now, but this NCAA Division I hockey rule is really more about the eligibility for Canadian hockey players who are playing major junior hockey in Canada in the CHL. So, and the CHL is made up of the Ontario Hockey League, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, and the Western Hockey League.
Right, and each of those leagues have it. And I'm making this up, but at least 10 teams in their respective leagues. Probably more. It's probably more like 20, but it's at least 10. So you're affecting 60 teams with rosters of 20. You talk about 1,200 players here that may now have NCAA eligibility, whereas in the past they didn't because they were quote unquote professionals. I did read that their stipend was $600 a month, which is why they were ruled professional players. But that $600 a month basically just went, how would any other college kid basically spend $600 a month? I mean, some video games, beer, and some food, and that's about it, right? I mean, it's not a lot of money to go on. I'm sure they have the free billets, I'm sure. But other than that, I mean, it's not a lot of money. And they played a long season. They played 68 games a year.
Yeah, but I think back in the day, the NCAA, it was basically any money, right? So now it's like you can't hold that. And so essentially what happened was, I think it was in September, a player in the Western Hockey League, I think it was the Western Hockey League, played for the Regina Pats, committed verbally to play Division I hockey at Arizona State, even though he's ineligible. Right. Since then, I think there are several players that have basically filed a lawsuit against the NCAA because of it. So because of all these changes that the NCAA has made, especially with the NIL, well, now you're allowing players to get played, but you're still not considering they're professional. But now you're not letting us be eligible to play because we're getting this stipend. Right. So I think that's where that all came into play. So it's going to have a major impact on hockey, NCAA, Canadian, juniors, even down lower. But essentially, we're going to try to get someone on the show who knows everything about this. I've reached out to them. Hopefully, I'll hear back from them. If not, I did reach out to another friend of mine who has his own blog and also writes for Inside Hockey. He covers the Bruins and he covers college, a lot of the at least New England college hockey. So we're going to invite him on either the podcast or the radio show, one or the other. So we'll let them go into a little bit more detail on this. But essentially, this comes down to Canadian junior players under the current system. The NHL teams that draft them lock them up without having to pay right. them. And the NHL teams are then even further, they're able to manipulate where they play juniors after they draft them and limit what junior teams they can play for. Right now college players can play, if they get drafted, they can go to college, they can play out. So the NHL teams own their rights, but if they play out the 4 years of college, they become free agents again. We saw that happen with Jimmy Vesey, who was at Harvard. I think he was drafted by the Nashville Predators.
That sounds right. I'm not sure.
They owned his rights. He decided not to sign with them. He played through his 4 years of college and then came out and he signed with. No, I think that's wrong. I think he signed with Nashville, but I want to say maybe Buffalo owned his rights.
Yeah, anyway, I'm not sure.
We can verify that. I think he ended up signing as a free agent with Nashville. He currently plays for the Rangers now. So college players' rights expire if they don't sign. And I think in Canada, they don't expire until they're once they turn 20, they can play Canadian Hockey League until they turn 20.
Yep.
And then they can go. Then basically the teams have they can dictate where they go and whatnot. So what will end up happening though is I think it'll open up the door both ways. So if you're a player down here who maybe you want to go play up, and I mentioned this to you before, like Charlie Coyle went to BU.
Yes.
and then he left BU and went up and played in the Quebec Major Junior League. Now, once he did that, he couldn't come back and play college.
Right.
And I don't know if he was drafted. I would assume he was drafted at the time.
I would think so,
because
I think it was a pretty high pick.
He was drafted by Minnesota. And whether Minnesota had any say in that or not, I don't know. But I know that once he left BU, because I think he only played there 1 year. And unfortunately, I think it was like the years that they were kind of in their decline a little bit. When BC was kind of like surging. He couldn't come back.
Right.
And I think he went up there because he thought it was the best opportunity for him from a style standpoint. And in this, I had an article that was put out by, I want to say it was Neutral Zone, that put the article out. And they talk about the differences in style, even between, the different leagues in the NCAA, from like, the CCH, I think it's the CCHA or whatever it is, to Hockey East, to the, there's a difference in style, just like up in Canada. The Quebec Major Junior is a different style than the Ontario Hockey League, which is a completely different style of the Western Hockey League. So it is interesting to see. So and for years, not a lot of Canadian players came down and played college. Back in the 90s, there weren't a lot of Americans that went up and played juniors.
And to the NCAA credit, they've done a tremendous job of elevating their hockey program, where it is very well respected in the NHL. You always see, he came out of University of Michigan, came out of BU, came out of BC, came out of Providence. It's they've raised their game very much so. The fact that you even have Canadian Junior League players who, again, play an over 60-game season with fighting allowed in the stipend, wanting the collegiate experience down in the States, which is basically a 32-game season, no fighting. Not that fighting is a big part of the game; it's just not allowed. And they want that experience. This is a kudos to the NCAA, which you don't hear that too often. But for the Hockey Federation to elevate the NCAA game to the respectability that it has right now in North America, it's tremendous. I never thought I'd see Canadian hockey players wanting to come to the States to play hockey. I always figured it'd be the other way around.
Yeah. And there are more and more and more of it. And even down here, you see it's not even just the NCAA. There's the AC, I think it's the ACHA now, which is the low. You see teams. I was having a conversation with president of my company who's from the Mid-Atlantic, and we were just talking about, the different levels down. You go down to, North Carolina, the University of North Carolina has a hockey team.
Right.
It's not a club team. It's a ACHA team. So it's, just a different level. It's below the NCAA, but, and I want to say they had a 5th year transfer from Maine a couple years ago. So
right.
in I think in any college sport, you can play 4 years without a red shirt or anything like that. If you red shirt, obviously you get another year of eligibility. But if you don't have a red shirt year, you could play a 5th year at a school that you have to transfer to a school that doesn't offer, so Maine doesn't offer you a grad program that you want to go to, so you can transfer to another school. So he transferred to the University of North Carolina, and he played for their ACHA team, and was like tearing it up. Obviously, he's a Division I Hockey East player. For 4 years, he goes down to University of North Carolina and plays, and he's obviously probably a step above some of the players that are down there. But you can even go down to the SEC. Alabama has a team. University of Miami has a team. University of Tampa has a hockey team now. They're all over the place. And in some of them start out at the club level, and then they work their way up. Penn State was a club team. Now they're a Division I team. Arizona State was a club level team. They made the leap straight from club to Division I. Some of it is funding. I remember reading an article about Arizona State, and I want to say their club coach happened to be either on like the Arizona State radio show or I don't think it was a podcast, because it was years ago, but Actually, well, maybe it could have been because it wasn't that long ago. But somebody had asked him, well, what would it take for Arizona State to have a Division I hockey program? And he said it would probably take $50 million because they didn't have the facilities. And then, like a year later or a year and a half later, supposedly they got like an anonymous $50 million donation. And they ended up starting up a Division I program. They built the arena that they play in now that the Arizona Coyotes had moved
for 2
to.
or 3 years.
Right, it was like a 5,000 seat college arena, which is great, but not great for a NHL franchise. And I want to say there were rumors that the donation potentially could have come from Mario Lemieux because his son ended up going there. But they got a pretty good program. Right. Actually, I was just looking. They're playing at Providence College next Friday and Saturday night. I might try to grab tickets. There aren't a lot of tickets left. It's funny. You mentioned on the show that, hey, you can go to any of these games anytime you want. At Providence College, very limited tickets to all their home games this year.
I mean, and good for PC, good for Steve Napolillo that we've had on our show. Schneider Arena, it's 3,000. I think 3,030 is official, but 3,000 seats at Schneider Arena, great place to catch a game. Definitely not big enough to sell out the Civic Center. But I mean, they should be banging out Schneider Arena every single game.
You mean what's the Civic Center?
Sorry, the Dunkin' Donuts Center, the AMP,
the AMP, the AMP.
Great Woods.
We age ourselves. Yeah. So Great Woods, the Tweeter Center, Xfinity. It's Xfinity now. But I always make that joke too. I'm always like, it's
go up to Schaefer Stadium, check out Foxborough Stadium,
Yeah.
Sullivan Stadium.
So, I would love to see them play a game or two at the
that would be great. I think,
especially if you could draw.
I think with the right matchup and the right promotion, maybe promote it with a Providence Bruins, a potential doubleheader, two for the price of one. Whether they get along or not, I don't know. Assuming they do, with the relationship with the basketball team and everything. When you look at the Providence Bruins, regularly get about 8,000 to 9,000 on a Friday, 6,000 to 7,000 on the Sunday. That's their usual home schedule, Friday, Sunday. Maybe some Saturday they could do something in the future. Because a standalone Providence versus, I would have to go with a BU or BC. That would probably bring in the best matchup. It would be the best to get. I think you'd have to try to guarantee 8,000 or 9,000 seats to make it worthwhile.
Sure.
Because if you're going to put in 4,000 or 5,000 at the AMP, that's great for ticket sales, but it plays to you get too many echoes going on in a 12,000 seat arena that's only a third full. So that would be a little bit dicey. But I would love to see it. They do well when the NCAAs come with the regionals. Providence is always on the list. They will never host a Frozen Four again, which is too bad. After going to all these Frozen Fours, you talk to people from around the country. Providence is the best. However, the NCAA looks at Providence and Boston as the same market. And if they can get 4,000 more tickets sold up in Boston than they can in Providence, that's where they're going to go. However, the regionals are always in a rotation. If you watch the regionals on TV, Providence is one of the ones that's, though not sold out, will get 9,000 or 10,000. Whereas other cities will get maybe only 3,000. Even Worcester doesn't do great with the regionals, though they're in the rotation. They do better than some of the Midwest on regionals. But Providence does very well. PC has had the opportunity to play in a couple of regionals. They draw well for that. I would love to see, maybe some sort of I don't know, like Rhode Island type of, maybe not a bean pot because there's only so many Division I teams, but some sort of doubleheader. We were talking about this the other day with the outdoor stadium at Tidewater. Maybe you do some sort of Roger Williams, Johnson and Wales, followed by Providence College and Brown for the Mayor's Cup. Something like that. Maybe that helps. I think it would be great. Do one game a year at the AMP, at the Civic AMP, and see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll get Napolillo on, and then maybe we can connect the dots and get. I don't know how much Dave Parrott has. I'm assuming they have some say in what's going to happen at the stadium.
And I would imagine they want as many events
over
possible.
Tidewater.
You see it with
You only have
the outdoor rinks, even at Fenway. When they brought Frozen Fenway to Fenway, then you had college teams play there. I actually saw Providence College play at Fenway Park many years ago. They also bring in high school games. Your BC Highs playing.
So, and that's you'd have to do that. I mean, if they're going to set that up out there and put a rink in, you have to get it so that you're bringing in, a Hendrick and LaSalle game, or maybe you're getting like a St. George's, Portsmouth,
maybe
Abbey,
you get the Mount St. Charles with their junior team.
Mount St. Charles, maybe they bring in. I don't know. I know they play in a league. They play in that league with Shattuck St. Mary, where that's a hockey factory. So I don't know if they come out here at all and play, or if they just play in tournaments. But
the money's right.
Maybe that's something you reach out to, or you get. Like I said, I lived down in New Jersey back in 2005, and kind of made the connection with Delbarton Prep. They started coming up here playing, because they were just hockey was like 10 years behind down there, high school wise.
Yeah.
They would just dominate. I mean, I'd go watch these games and it would be like 15-0. They'd be killing teams. There were a couple private teams that they played that were good, but very few and far between. But, so they started coming up playing Mount St. Charles, Catholic Memorial. I'm not sure if they ever played Hendrick game, but they'd come through Connecticut playing like Notre Dame Academy, Fairfield Prep. They'd come up to Mass play, Xaverian, BC High, a couple of Catholic schools down there, like Bosco Prep comes up. They usually play BC High, but Delbarton. So maybe you get Delbarton to come up. They play Mount, or
go get Canton High School too from Massachusetts for a public school. They're always ranked pretty high. They're like Taunton in softball. They're like Cumberland in football for high school. That these public schools just kind of like can start taking start making waves against some of these private schools.
Yeah, and that's always it's funny. We segue around, but hey, this is the podcast. We can talk about whatever we want. I talked to someone yesterday about it. So it looks like there's a big push happening to get MIA to go back to the Super 8.
I would love to see that.
I heard that, and I don't recall who they play, but St. John's Prep played whoever they played in the first round last year. They like absolutely smoked, like put up like double-digit goals. And I think part of the reason they did that, like they did it to make a statement and basically saying,
"This is ridiculous."
Like we shouldn't be playing. They shouldn't be like we're the number 1 seed and we're playing against the 30. Let's get it back to what it used to be. Put the Elite 8 or the Super 10. Take the 10 teams, put them in their own division. Let's really play hockey. I think they won. Yeah,
I think
last year, right? So that
a couple of years ago. Actually, I think it was before COVID. Canton did get screwed out of the Super 8. They went 19-0-1. Had that tie been a win, they would have been in the Super 8. But because Canton plays Division 2 in hockey, they put them in the Division 2 playoffs. So they missed the Super 8. Don't play Division 1 playoffs. Went to Division 2 and won every game 10-0 on their way to the D2 championship. Whereas I don't know if they would have won the Super 8s, but they probably would have won a game or two, like to advance before losing to your BC Highs or whoever, because they had beaten some Super 8 teams earlier in the year. That year, I'll have to find it. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, there's been a couple. I mean, Franklin had a really good team last year. They knocked off some big teams. So I mean, this usually ends up being the 10 teams that get picked. Usually it's 5. It's usually 5-5, public and Catholic or private. So
right,
but Canton falls into that team that they're not playing all Division 1 to Division 2. They're playing some Division 3 teams too.
They got to play Foxborough, for instance.
Where you got what ends up hurting them, and anyway, you got these teams that that go out and they play like their non-league games. They play against top teams. Like, I mean, I don't know. I heard this year the team to beat is going to be Arlington Catholic. Supposedly they're like phenomenal. They've returned a ton of players from last year. Their goalie is like outstanding. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always. I mean, you can't count. I heard Catholic Memorial has like basically 100% turnover this year. So they basically they lost all 3 goalies. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. BC High is always BC High. They come out, they play like just over 500 hockey, then they get into the states based off of their, especially now if they're doing the RPI based off of just strength of schedule, and then they start knocking teams off. Reading's always a good team. They get a lot of return. I'll mention them because my nephew plays. They'll be in the mix. Arlington's usually always one of the powerhouse public school teams. I think it's Missouri, who's been coaching there forever. He got a squad. So I mean, interesting to see what. I mean, I'm a high school hockey guy, so we definitely got off. But I want to try to have someone on to talk about this NCAA. It's certainly interesting to me, and to get the kind of nuances of it all and see.
Hey, Pat.
I think there's some benefit.
I looked it up. Canton, it was 2018, 2019. They went 25-0-1. They scored 133 goals and gave up 23 in 26 games. I'm trying to see.
They're in the Hawk. Are they in the Hawk?
Yeah, they're in the Hawk,
right?
They tied Milton on December 23rd. That was it. They beat Newburyport. They beat they tied Archbishop Williams in a tournament. Officially, Archbishop Williams got the win. A little confusing here, huh?
Yeah, that was in the the Falmouth tournament.
They beat Fian. They beat Boston Latin. They beat Mascomet. I mean, so it was crazy.
Yeah, but those are all D2 teams, though.
Well, that's the thing. Once they got into the playoffs, they couldn't play D1s anymore.
Milton's D1.
Yeah. Well, that's incredible.
So, all right. So let's go. We're an hour in, a little over. Yeah, we're about an hour and 2 in. Patriots. I didn't watch the game. I was doing some work outside, but I was listening to it, and to me, it was just abysmal. I mean, both teams were terrible, but they had the ball on the Dolphins side of the field like 3 times, and they get like literally they had the ball. They blocked a punt. They had like 8 plays or 9 plays for 8 yards total, and then missed a field goal, like a 30-yard field goal. So then it's like, oh my God. And then, it just bad. So, Mayo comes out today. They've named Drake Maye the starter. So he's going to start against Houston this weekend.
Who's the 8th best team in giving their quarterback time to throw the ball in the league? It's your New England Patriots.
Who's the
Patriots are 8th best in giving their quarterback time to throw the ball. It's an interesting stat I heard on the radio the other day. He actually has more time to throw than a lot of people think. Not to say he's not getting hit.
Yeah, I mean, I think,
but he has.
Yeah, I mean, and even Zolak. I think I mean, obviously, I listened to the radio, which I typically try to. Sometimes I just try to tune these guys, although they haven't had terrible guys. Yeah, but exactly. And Zoe was just so frustrated. And like, listen, he's gotten killed this year, so I'm not surprised that he's like, maybe he's hearing footsteps, he's seeing ghosts, he's releasing the ball early, he's getting it, but he definitely had time.
So something that swayed me over to Drake Maye. I heard a couple of days ago. I don't know if it was before they announced Drake Maye was starting or just after. But Caleb Jones and Jacoby Brissett have been sacked the same amount of times this year, 17. And Caleb Jones is winning as a rookie. We can't play Drake because he's going to get killed. Well, there's another rookie out there that's getting killed and winning.
Caleb Williams.
So it's
Chicago, right? Chicago.
I think so. Yeah.
Caleb Williams.
So with Drake, the only thing is what's tough is Houston's defense against the pass is one of the best in the league. They shut down the Bills and Josh Allen last week, so it's kind of tough to make your debut against a real good team. Would have been great if he made his debut against Miami, a team not so good.
Yeah, let him get in there and settle in a little bit, make some plays, and then now this week it's like, all right,
but
I got this.
But you know what?
So we'll see what. I listened to his interview today, and he says all the right things. He sounds pretty mature. You look around the league. You got Caleb Williams. You got Daniels in Washington, and you got Bo Nix. All putting up wins. I think they have the most wins by rookie quarterbacks in the first five games. So it's like he's the third pick overall. Right. You can't be worried about him getting hurt. He's a football player.
He's been hit before. He's been hit in practice. He's got the same offensive line protecting him in practice.
But listen, I think Van Pelt has been horrendous. I think his play calling has been absolutely
the clock
terrible.
Management's been an absolute disaster at the end of halves, at the end of games. It's embarrassing, especially last week. In a perfect world, they could be 3-2. Right now, they could have beat Seattle, and they should have beat Miami, and they did beat Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean you're a toe touch away from winning, and hey, if I'm Brissett, I'm like, hey, I'm a toe touch away from being the starter still.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Like, did that change if they don't lose that game? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't.
Maybe the whole plan was to give them 5. I don't know.
I think, although I don't think it's certainly a big issue, right? You got the news about
Jabril
Peppers coming out. He's arrested Saturday night. He has several charges against him.
Some strangulation, some cocaine.
Yeah, assault, strangulation, possession of a Class B, which evidently was cocaine. Obviously, all issues that'll play themselves out. It wouldn't. Is it irregardless of what the outcome is out of that? Because it'll end up being the charges that get dropped somehow. They got to get rid of him.
I think he didn't play last week anyway because of injury. I think it's one of those situations. I think it's going to be like a Milan Lucic. I think just quietly he'll get dropped. Maybe in
they'll end up dropping him this week. This was the NFL. The NFL comes. I think they put him on the
some exempt
whatever. The unable the exempt list. But basically, it gives the Patriots time to.
When I bet you they release him like the week of their bye week. When they're not making a lot of news,
if not sooner,
you give it on a Tuesday night.
It won't surprise me if he's gone within a week.
A little tweet: Jabril Peppers no longer employed by the Patriots. It'll be a Tuesday night at midnight. They'll talk about it a little bit on Wednesday. They'll move on Thursday, and they're not playing. They'll just put it this way: Jabril Peppers is not driving Boston Sports Talk Radio. Probably not driving our show. It'll get mentioned, but that's about it.
Woonsocket Sports Radio?
Exactly. Woonsocket Sports Radio. It's not driving it.
No. But it certainly speaks to, like, is there something happening? Does Mayo have control of the locker room? I mean, I'm certainly not blaming him for
but he was a captain.
This stuff, but he was a captain. He was named a captain the week before.
So you got to know who your captains are, right? And right now the captains aren't looking good. Brissett was a captain. Dave Andrews, captain, out for the year.
That's what somebody said. Well, they're going to name another captain. I'd be like, no. Don't
it's like the
don't pick me.
Curse.
I don't want to be it. Exactly. So, at the end of the day, I think, listen, we knew the season was going to start. We knew they were probably only going to put up 3, 4, 5 wins. I think people had them going under 500 anyway. I didn't expect them. Obviously we were pleasantly pleasantly surprised when they beat Cincinnati because I didn't have them winning that game, but Cincinnati doesn't look great either. So, it is what it is. I think you just let Drake play.
It's the right time. You got
They
a
got to
couple
make
good
some
running
changes.
backs. You got Henry as a tight end, can be kind of like your Ben Coates to Drew Bledsoe for your old timers. Gronk to Brady, nice little safety valve. You got the two good running backs coming out of the backfield. You can throw to them. You can hand off to them. And then maybe that opens up a spot for one of the receivers downfield that maybe he's got some chemistry with already in practice. I don't know if he does.
Yeah, I mean they have to get their receivers involved.
Right.
I mean they haven't been able to get them involved. I think they've been a little bit better over the last couple of weeks, but I mean I even that last play of the game, it's like they gave you that play.
Right.
They gave you the under,
yeah.
and you threw it to them, and that was
exactly.
it. You have to go to the end zone.
Exactly. You don't have 12 seconds to run off a play and spike it. So,
but here's what Mayo does have impact on. Like, you can't take 14 penalties. When was the last time the Patriots took as many penalties? Pre-snap penalties.
Too many men on the field when Miami was going to punt on 4th and 1, and the guy was sprinting off the field. I could see it from my living room. Guys run the field. I'm like, it's too many men. He's not even close. He's trying to get off the field. So it's not even close.
I mean, let alone you shouldn't be taking the 15-yard stupid penalties. Right. Some of them are,
the headbutting.
But then you get this linebacker, I think is Ellis, was in there, who probably has no. I mean, shouldn't even be on the team, but here he is. He's out there because they need him, and he takes a bad pass interference call on 3rd and long. And so they keep him on the field, and then you got White taking roughing the passer. I think he took 2 of them, right? At least, I think he had a face mask, and then he had a roughing the passer. So it's like, come on. Like, those are the things you got to clean up, but the pre-snap stuff is just terrible. But I did read that the I think it's Sow, the offensive lineman, he didn't give up a touch in like 41 dropbacks.
Okay. All right, so there's one. It's one to build around.
Yeah, so so this is the first game, I think they said, versus Houston that they'll have the same offensive line intact.
Oh, 2 games in a row
all season. So 2 games in a row, first time.
That's the only way to develop some cohesion, is working together. And people have been banged up and just aren't good. So if they it's the only way to build. Again, they're fortunate in that the expectations are so extraordinarily low that I think people just want them to be competitive against the better teams and beat the teams they should beat on paper. And they should have beat a Miami team that did not have Tua. That's why I think people are upset last week. And it's just, this week, I don't think they're 7-point underdogs at home. So if they can cover this week, I think people will be thrilled. That means they did something right at home against a better team. And they got a rookie quarterback starting. So I think people will be thrilled. Not that they covered, just if they played within 7 points. 31-24, can you imagine that? If this offense could put up 24 points somehow, some way with Drake Maye, there would be some hope, there would be some optimism.
All right, so we got updates. Dodgers up 5-0, top of the 3rd. Yankees up 3-2, top 9th. 1 out, 1 on, top of the 9th. So we have Kevin will be making the call Friday night at 7:00, right, from Cumberland High School.
1 game this week. Cumberland against the Salem, New Hampshire Blue Devils. Should be a good game.
Coming down from Salem. So that you can hear that live, WOON, 99.5 FM, 1240 AM, Woonsocket Radio. He'll be with Brendan McGeer. Maybe I'll swing by there.
You and I might be at Autumn Fest Sunday and on Monday this week. If you come out and meet the
Autumn Fest in Woonsocket Sunday and Monday, we'll post it. We'll be out there if you want to come out and meet us. We'll be on Saturday morning, 9 a.m. our usual spot, and we'll probably touch base on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. We'll talk a little bit about the New York Jets coach firing.
Aaron Jones fired his head coach. Aaron Rodgers.
Who might have made that call? And actually, if I'm not mistaken, I think I read that they hire the Georgia coach.
I only knew that they promoted the defensive coordinator interim. I didn't know if they hired.
I thought I read somewhere that they hired him today, but he's going to stay on at Georgia till the end of the season, and he will take the head coaching reins in February. But we'll confirm that.
Okay.
For Saturday. And by then we'll probably know who the division finals are in the Major League Baseball.
Yep. Yeah, should have an ALCS and an NLCS ready to roll, maybe even that night. Not knowing the schedule at the top of my head, but it should be starting this weekend.
Yeah. So all right. So we'll sign off. Again, this is the cheap seats. Kevin was, I guess,
I downgraded. I had cheap seats. I got cheaper seats.
Downgraded. You get the cheaper seats with better Wi-Fi. So we'll be, the podcast is every Wednesday night. You can find it on Spotify and Apple Podcasts currently, and on our YouTube channel. So look for our social media. We'll get all that up there, and usually I get it up later on tonight. And then Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. WOON 99.5 FM, 1240 a.m. WoodSoccerRadio.com. Have a good night.